there is no suffering, no disease, and no death, where humans will be at peace with animals and where most of humanity will be resurrected. Today, we're going to analyze the evolution of paradise in Jehovah's Witness literature and videos, from humble depictions of life in the countryside to futuristic utopias. First of all, where do Jehovah's Witnesses get the idea of a paradise earth? Mostly from a handful of Bible verses. The most quoted verse, by far, is Revelation 21, 3 and 4. If you grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, you probably know it by heart.
With that, I heard a loud voice from the throne say, "Look, the tent of God is with mankind, and he will reside with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them, and he will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away."
Jehovah's Witnesses argue that since there is no death or suffering in heaven, then these verses must refer to planet Earth. They also argue that Jehovah has not given up his original purpose for the earth, that is, have it be inhabited by perfect humans. So paradise will be a return to the Garden of Eden before Adam and Eve disobeyed God. Except this time, it's gonna cover the entire planet.
His purpose still stands. He wants to give this gift, an earth-wide paradise, to you, to enjoy in happiness and health forever.
Descriptions of paradise are constructed from an assortment of Old Testament verses, mostly from the Psalms and the book of Isaiah. For example, Psalm 37, 9 and 10 says,
"For evil men will be done away with, but those hoping in Jehovah will possess the earth. Just a little while longer, and the wicked will be no more. You will look at where they were, and they will not be there. But the meek will possess the earth, and they will find exquisite delight in the abundance of peace."
Seems pretty nice, right? But the thing is, these psalms were written by Hebrew prophets for the people of Israel. If you read the entire song, you realize that this is not a prophecy for the future. It's simply a common theme throughout the psalms. Wicked men will be punished, but the righteous will inherit the land. Something similar happens with the book of Isaiah. To describe paradise, Watchtower quotes Isaiah 35, 5 and 6. "At that time the eyes of the blind will be opened, and the ears of the deaf will be unstopped. At that time the lame would leap like the deer, the tongue of the speechless will shout for joy. For waters will burst forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert plain." Watchtower interprets these verses to mean that in paradise, the blind will see, the deaf will hear, the mute will speak, and the deserts will bloom. Like, literally. But if you read the entire chapter, it becomes apparent that the writer was talking about Israel, the promised land. These are called restorationist texts, written when the Israelites were exiled to Babylon. They're prophecies on the Jewish deliverance from Babylon. So what is going on here? Watchtower is cherry-picking verses from the Old Testament that were directed towards the Jewish people and applying the text to themselves in a future utopia. Watchtower acknowledges that these prophecies were meant for the Jewish people first, but they claim that the prophecies have a second fulfillment. By doing this, they construct a picture of paradise where people live alongside wild animals, where disabilities don't exist, and where deserts start to bloom. It's a patchwork of cherry-picked verses turned into an idealized future. But how will this paradise come about exactly? First, there's the call of peace and security. This is when all the nations of the world come together and announce they want peace and security. Right after that, the United Nations will turn against organized religion and destroy it. This is the fall of Babylon the Great.
The destruction of Babylon the Great marks the beginning of what Jesus called the Great Tribulation. After false religion is gone, what comes next? The book of Ezekiel foretells that the nations will attack Jehovah's people, coming like a vast army and like clouds covering the land. No wonder then that once these political powers attack God's people, Jesus will take action. Now Jesus turns his attention to what remains of Satan's wicked world, its political and commercial systems. He dismantles, destroys, and brings to nothing all who oppose true worship on earth.
Once all the unbelievers are destroyed, Christ rules the earth for 1,000 years. Along with Jesus, faithful humans restore the earth into a paradise. This religion has believed in paradise since its very inception. In the photodrama of Creation, released in 1914, Charles Taze Russell depicted paradise as a beautiful garden.
Then there shall be no more sickness or dying. The former things of sin and death will have passed away.
And he even believed that once the earth was restored to perfection, humans would go on to populate other planets as well. This is actually a fan theory among some witnesses up to this day. Joseph Rutherford, the successor of Charles Taze Russell, also believed in Paradise Earth. One of his most iconic preaching campaigns was titled, "Millions Now Living Will Never Die." That is, they will pass right into paradise without having to die first. A promise which turned out to be a complete lie. Rutherford was so convinced in the imminence of Armageddon that he bought a mansion in California to host the resurrected patriarchs once they were resurrected. I'm dead serious. This was known as Beth Sarim. During the first few decades of Watchtower, illustrations of paradise were quite scarce. Only at the end of the century do we start getting more paradise art. Like in the brochure, "You Can Be God's Friend," released in 2000, where we get the traditional depictions of paradise, with happy people sitting at a picnic table in close proximity to wild animals. The vast majority of these scenes take place in green fields, in front of mountains, or by the beach. We rarely get paradise picnics in the rainforest or the savannah, and none of them in the desert. Remember, there will be no deserts in paradise.
All will enjoy as we sing of God's glory. Long as we live, we will give to God our Maker thanks.
As we look at all these paradise pictures, you start noticing a few common tropes, like this depiction of a line of Jehovah's Witnesses right after Armageddon, as they leave the destroyed world behind and walk right into the new world. These drawings are the ones that give me the most North Korean vibes. What's interesting is that Watchtower has never depicted what I would suspect would be the first few decades after Armageddon. We never see drawings of JWs having to rebuild the world after it has been obliterated by fireballs. I mean, just imagine all the rubble you're gonna have to clean up after God destroys all the skyscrapers and infrastructure. How about all the corpses? Guess who's gonna have to pick that up? It ain't Jehovah. The only drawing we've had of the immediate aftermath of Armageddon is this one, where Jesus commands the birds of heaven to dispose of all the corpses of the unbelievers, which is dark as hell, but it sure beats having to bury the bodies yourself. So after the smoke of Big J's genocide is gone, how will life be in the new world?
We're not a democracy. We're a theocracy.
The book, Learn from the Great Teacher, has a lot of paradise pictures. All of these depict humans coexisting with animals. The New World is supposed to be a restoration of the Garden of Eden, and since Adam and Eve coexisted with animals, that must mean animals will be pacified in the future. Watchtower also quotes Isaiah 65:25, which says, "The wolf and the lamb will feed together. The lion will eat straw just like the bull, and the serpent's food will be dust. They will do no harm nor cause any ruin in all my holy mountain." Watchtower takes this verse literally, even though, like I mentioned, it was written for the Israelites returning to the Promised Land. It's poetic language painting the Promised Land as an abode of peace. It's not literal. And just look at the crazy assortment of critters they have here. We have a toucan, a polar bear, a lion, and a leopard. In real life, none of these animals would be sharing the same ecosystem. Toucans belong in the rainforest, and polar bears belong in the Arctic. Is there gonna be animal trafficking in paradise? Also, notice how the lion is eating straw alongside the ox. That's because JWs believe all carnivores will turn vegetarian in paradise, which makes no sense. Predators are an essential part of the ecosystem. If you were to get rid of them, there would be an overpopulation of herbivores. God would have to rework natural cycles from scratch To turn a lion vegetarian, you would have to change its teeth, its digestive tract, he would have no need for claws, and the lion family dynamics would change completely. A vegetarian lion would no longer be a lion. This belief that animals will be vegetarian also poses a moral dilemma, because if in God's perfect world there is no food chain, no predators and prey, then that would mean his previous designs that have been in place for billions of years are flawed, imperfect. You see what happens when you cherry-pick Bible verses to build your utopia? Oh, but humans will also be vegetarian, although this is not an official doctrine, it's pretty much understood, since paradise scenes never depict any meat. Everything is fruits, veggies, milk, and bread.
So sad.
With millions of animal species to choose from, you would think that Watchtower would add a bit of variety to their drawings, but nope. We always get the same animals in these paradise pictures. Black pandas, lions, dogs, giraffes, leopards, deer, wolves, sheep, cows, and elephants. Lots and lots of elephants. I think the artists of Bethel just have the dream to ride an elephant. Even though that hurts the elephant's spine, their spines are not designed to carry any weight. In the latest music videos, we do see children playing with a wider assortment of animals like flamingos and harambe, but you can be sure there will always be black pandas somewhere in the frame.
You can't really go near animals and play with them now, but in paradise, they won't hurt you or try to bite you, so you can play with them and have fun. I want to have a race with the cheetahs in the paradise.
Promising tamed wild animals is one of the most attractive aspects of paradise, especially for little children. Just don't tell them that animals have no chance of living forever or being resurrected. The Watchtower has confirmed that animals were not made to live forever. I don't know, Jehovah, can you give dogs a longer lifespan at least? If we are to live forever, then you could potentially lose like a gazillion dogs. That's a lot of heartbreak. Did you have any animals you wanted to have as pets in paradise? Let me know in the comments below. I really wanted a pet platypus, man. Too bad it's never gonna happen. Unless I go to Australia and steal one, but what if he pokes me with his little venomous stick or turns out to be a secret agent?
It's good to imagine ourselves in paradise. It helps us to rejoice in the hope that Jehovah has given us.
So, aside from playing around with lions and cheetahs, what will JWs actually be doing in paradise? Work. A lot of work. That's another common trope. The strong Jehovah's Witness man looking at a blueprint of his new home, tucking in his sleeves, ready to work. The woman tending to the gardens, of course, because they're women. JWs are promised that in paradise, there will be plenty of enjoyable work and an abundance of food. Everyone will work for themselves and provide for themselves. There's gonna be no capitalism, no socialism, only theocracy. This is shown in the paradise pictures where humanity sits before the heavenly host. Jesus will be the king of the earth. He rules alongside the anointed, 144,000 human beings who are now immortal spirit beings.
And throughout Revelation, we read of Jesus' key role in destroying God's enemies, removing our suffering, and restoring earth to a paradise. These are not empty promises.
On earth, Jesus will appoint human princes to govern everyone else. These princes will be chosen from among the survivors of Armageddon and from resurrected men who prove themselves exceptionally faithful. The Watchtower has also flown around the idea that in paradise, everyone will be assigned a place to live, which sucks because the whole point of paradise was that you could build your home wherever you wanted. But nope, life under the theocracy will be extremely controlled. Jehovah's Witnesses are encouraged to live simple lives today, because once they're in paradise, they'll have more than enough time to build their own mansions. In fact, the belief in paradise has also discouraged some JW couples from having children. I actually met a lot of couples like this in my congregation. They had a desire to start a family, but they decided to postpone having children until after Armageddon. Think about it. If you truly believe that the end is imminent, then having children today just steals precious time that could be used to convert people and save their lives. Some JWs also chose to turn down education, career opportunities, and even marriage, all with the purpose of serving Jehovah more fully now, with the conviction that Jehovah will repay them in paradise. It's depressing as fuck. But Jehovah's Witnesses will also be busy with another type of work, the preaching work.
Learning disciple-making skills now prepares us for the even greater disciple-making work of the new world.
Watchtower teaches that everyone who died without having an opportunity to learn about Jehovah will be resurrected and given a shot at everlasting life. So in their paradise pieces, you'll find people of all eras being resurrected, like this Native American girl. In Watchtower lore, characters like Genghis Khan, Pol Pot, and Mao Zedong could technically be resurrected since they never had a chance to learn about Jehovah's Witnesses. Famous Bible characters like Abraham, Moses, and Noah will also be resurrected. In this picture, we see Prophet Jeremiah working in a grape field alongside modern JWs, and here we see Noah telling little children about his adventures with the ark.
I want to meet resurrected Daniel in paradise and ask him how he felt when he was thrown into the lion's pit. Jehovah promises so many fun and happy things.
So the few million survivors of Armageddon will be assigned to teach billions of resurrected people about Jehovah and the Bible. And Watchtower always depicts these scenes with one Bible teacher with a couple of students. But in reality, every Jehovah's Witness would have to be teaching thousands of people at a time, which sounds like a nightmare. There's simply not enough time to convert billions of people before the 1,000-year reign is up.
If we think about it, millions have been made disciples during these last years of the last days. But in the new world, apparently, billions of disciples will need to be made. How much greater is a billion than a million? 1,000 times greater. So we're talking about thousands of times more disciples needing to be made then than now.
When a Jehovah's Witness thinks about the resurrection, he's not worrying about historical figures like David or Genghis Khan. He's thinking about his family, his mother, father, siblings, or even children who have passed away. A big part of the Paradise illustrations center around the resurrection, with loved ones embracing one another and crying. And the videos are 1,000 times more heart-wrenching because they add emotional music to them. Close your eyes and come with me to God's world of peace and harmony. Come with me and you'll see, you will see. We thank you, our God, for all you have done. All things are new by the rule of your Son. These are very emotional videos, and I'm not gonna lie, they still get me emotional even after 4 years of leaving the religion. Notice how some of the people in these drawings are kind of old. That's because the process of de-aging in paradise is gradual. Perfection is not something granted overnight. It's a process which takes up to 1,000 years. So that means that people will be resurrected in an imperfect state. And this opens up a big can of worms. Will homosexual people be resurrected as straight? According to Stephen Lett, the answer is no.
There will be many others who will come back who will have to abandon their former way of life. I was thinking, as an example, a homosexual. Now, this former homosexual comes back in the resurrection, and he really thought, and he was taught, and he came to believe that God accepted him with that lifestyle. But now he's going to learn about Jehovah's moral standards. He's going to learn that Jehovah will not lower his standard to accommodate us. We have to come up to Jehovah's standard. Will he change? Will he adjust? It'll be up to him.
And what sucks the most is that Stephen Lett gave that talk shortly after the death of his nephew, also named Stephen, who took his own life after he was disfellowshipped for being gay. Don't let his goofy demeanor fool you. This man is rotten to the core. He also made a very distasteful joke about his deceased mother.
They'll need to be brought up to date so they can help in this great disciple-making work. An example, I think, of my mother. She was baptized in 1938. She died in 2012, a little over 8 years ago. She really wanted to see the end of this system. And she was of that Judge Rutherford generation, really wanted to see that prostitute destroyed. But cancer prevented that from happening. And I remember shortly before she died, I said, Mom, I know you wanted to go into the new world, the overland passageway. Never die at all. But you're going to have to take the underground tunnel.
What a clown. So what happens next? During the 1,000-year reign of Jesus, humans will have to learn about Jehovah and accept his teachings. At the end of the 1,000 years, Jehovah will release Satan from the abyss to test humanity one final time. Everyone that joins Satan's rebellion is destroyed, and everyone who remains faithful to Jehovah will gain everlasting life in a perfect planet. Satan and his demons are cast into the lake of fire, which represents the second death, everlasting destruction, and Hades is also tossed into the lake of fire, which means no more death for humanity. Jesus surrenders his throne to Jehovah, and his 144,000 cool rulers just hang out in heaven for eternity, I guess.
So that's it, right?
So all of this is nice and good, but there are still many unanswered questions, and Watchtower tells us we have no need to speculate about details that are not supplied by the scriptures. They say there's going to be new scrolls opened up in the new world that will act as instructions for paradise. But we're going to speculate anyways. Will humanity go back to being naked, just like Adam and Eve were naked in the garden? It makes sense, right? If there is no sin, then there is no shame of being naked. Every Jehovah's Witness has a different answer to this question. Will people be able to sin after the final test? If the answer is no, then wouldn't that take away your free will? And if you are able to sin, will you be immediately destroyed? Wait, but that's impossible because at that point, death has been thrown into the lake of fire, so is it possible to even die? Will you remember your loved ones that didn't make it to paradise? That would cause pain, wouldn't it? And paradise is supposed to be without pain. Will Jehovah just make you forget them then? As cruel as it sounds, that's the headcanon of a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, especially parents who have disfellowshipped children. I still wonder how my parents deal with the belief that I won't be with them in paradise. Like, do they imagine that I would just repent last minute? Or are they just counting on Jehovah wiping my memory off their brains? Who knows? Will there even be enough space for everyone in paradise? We're talking about more than 100 billion people being resurrected. We would have to clear every forest to feed everyone, and not all land on earth is arable. People in paradise are always depicted in these mansions with huge gardens, when in reality, we would all end up crammed together in slums. What language will we use to communicate? Will resurrected people be speaking their own language that they used while they were alive? What about those resurrected people that maybe like they were part of a tribe that spoke a language that has now been lost? Who's gonna translate for them? When will people stop having children? Will deceased babies be resurrected? If so, will they resurrect as babies? Who's gonna take care of all these little enemies of God? What about infrastructure? Who's gonna be producing all these tables and ovens and metal tools? We will still need factories that make all these products. How can you guarantee that there will be no corruption, no black markets, and no exploitation? You got billions of people coming back to life, some of them being pirates and criminals. Are you telling me they're just gonna decide to be good all of the time? Satan and his demons decided to rebel even though they were right in front of Jehovah, so what makes you think that people in paradise will be any better? See, once you start thinking logically about paradise, the whole thing makes no sense. At least with the traditional concept of heaven, there's more room for suspending disbelief since it's heaven, right? It's in another realm of existence. But with a paradise earth, all of these plot holes just severely undermine your narrative. Of course, an indoctrinated Jehovah's Witness doesn't worry too much about the plot holes or the fact that Armageddon should have been here decades ago. Nope, they'll hang on to their paradise hope because accepting that they have been conned is sometimes too painful. The hope of paradise is what keeps so many people in the religion, even if they don't really believe in the rest of the doctrine. Now let's take a look at our final drawing, the latest depiction of paradise. This one is from the new book, Walk Courageously with God, and it's a really strange vibe. Looks like a Star Wars ripoff, honestly, with a futuristic architecture and curved wood, and the clothing is also bizarre. There's people feeding the giraffe, there's some people making pizzas, others are listening to a music show with whom I presume is King David on the harp. And why is this lady looking straight at us? Is she laughing at us? She's like, there's no way you actually believe this. And guys, we have only really covered the official teachings on paradise. There is a whole world of fan theories held by common Jehovah's Witnesses which shape their own vision of paradise. I reached out to everyone on Reddit asking for your favorite piece of paradise lore, so I'll share some of my favorites here. No Cook 4109 says, I've gotten into plenty of discussions about if there would be technology or not, and if we would eat meat or not. One of my ex-witness girlfriends said there would be no twerking in paradise at all, not even in the bedroom of a married couple. One of the many things that made me realize that nobody wants to live in anyone else's version of paradise. Yikes, no twerking in paradise? No thanks. Taylor 2020 says, a regular pioneer stating that everyone will live naked and that there will be no privacy, not even during sex because it will be perfect. And all of this will be seen as normal. Wow. And then someone responded, sounds like a pervert's paradise. I've heard people suggest we'll be naked because Adam and Eve were, and that we'd all speak one language again. Yeah, that's something I heard a few times as well. Everyone's gonna be speaking Hebrew because that's supposedly the original language spoken by Adam and Eve. No, bro. Adán y Eva hablaban español. Ese es el idioma de los dioses. Slack says, a bit niche and nothing about pet pandas, but I was about 16 and wanting to go out with a brother I liked and vice versa, and my mom, to discourage me, told me, don't rush to find someone now. You have all those hundreds of thousands of young men who died in the world wars who will be resurrected to choose from. Modern men, even witness boys, have modern values and have all been exposed to porn. Wow, yeah. Good luck getting married to a World War I troop who died in the trenches, who would probably come back with PTSD. And what if he had his legs blown up? Is he gonna be an amputee for a while? Regular Girl 1968 says, in the new system, we will always wear our meeting clothes, since that's what's in all of the Watchtower literature pictures. Yeah, that's true. Everyone's wearing boring clothing all of the time. And this made me realize something which is a bit off tangent, but the Watchtower has never depicted sports in paradise. Have you thought about that? No football, no basketball, nothing. Which is really strange. I know that Watchtower looks down on professional sports players and getting too competitive in sports, but they don't have a problem with JWs playing sports recreationally. So I wonder why we've never seen it in paradise. Long Obligation 219 says, the water canopy will be restored, bringing the entire Earth to a comfortable, year-round temperature. This greenhouse effect on the Earth would allow the North and South Poles to be habitable, and with huge amounts of the ocean now being held in the canopy in the sky, there will be more land available for humans to inhabit, making all of the extra billions of people on the Earth no big deal, because there's now space for everyone. You see, this is a perfect example of how Jehovah's Witnesses will deal with paradise plot holes by just making shit up. Pimo Tupomo says, my crazy father-in-law taught that those who survive Armageddon will have so many descendants that they will move to their own planets named after them. Hey, it's not as crazy as it sounds. Remember Charles Taze Russell? He also believed in colonizing other planets. Sounds very Mormon-y, for sure. Captain Fidget says, humans only use 10% of our brains, and when we're restored to perfection, we'll be easily able to imagine and create anything we need. Yeah, I heard that one all of the time from the platform as well. Hey, maybe unlocking 100% of your brain will allow JWs to create artificial meat that tastes exactly like the original thing, since we won't be able to have barbecues in paradise. And to me, a paradise without barbecues is no paradise at all.
Epic.
So guys, that's as much paradise lore as I could recall. If I missed anything or if you have your own stories, please let me know in the comments below. It's such a fascinating topic to cover. If you would like to support my work, please head on over to Patreon